Welcome to Real Talks with Pinks. Thank you for the love we've been receiving on the channel. Please keep liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. Today, we have Kofi on the show. We are going to talk about a sensitive topic, but as you know, my show is about real events that happen to people and how they experience life. Can you introduce yourself quickly to my viewers, and then I'll tell them what we're talking about.
All right. To all the viewers, Retlotliloe Moiloa. I was invited to the show by Elspinky. I think there was something, I don't know, that sort of intrigued her about me and my personal life. I don't know what else it is that you want my viewers to know about me. Anything I can say?
What you do, you don't have to say where you work.
Okay, I am a compliance officer, currently employed with Vodacom Lesotho, and this is where we interact a lot. But I've known her more
Since
than
high school.
Yeah, for a very long time actually now. Yeah.
And for the purposes of the show, people will know that I'm old if you're calling me as Pink. You just call me Pinks.
Oh, Pinks. Oh my God, yes, I should have. I should have.
Thank you for coming, Kofi. Kofi shared a story with me about her childhood, and I thought if she wanted to share, why not come to the show? And then she agreed. So today we will be talking about how parent separation and divorce affects kids. And like I'm saying, this is a sensitive topic, but I think this is a topic that most people will relate to. And I would like to say, when I start, no human being that I know gets married to divorce.
Yeah.
But as people get married, sometimes they go through divorce or separation, and then when there are kids in that type of union, they do get affected. And I feel like we haven't had the conversation. So Tlotli, can we please get straight into it? How was your life before and maybe after your parents' separation and divorce?
Okay. It was what we would term pretty normal, right? You grow up in a nuclear family setting where there's a mother, a father. I have an older sister, so it's pretty normal. You know, it was comfortable. More than anything, it was comfortable. I can't say my memory is vivid. Why? Because my parents' separation happened when I was very young. So I can remember, it's very blurred, but I can tell you what comfort is when you have two parents, when you have a home, there's affordability. It's just really comfortable. That's what it was. It was comfortable.
Comfortable is the word.
Comfortable is the word. Yes, I can't stress it enough. But then comes the transition. For me personally, I don't think it caught me off guard. I think the one thing that as parents I also would like to share with you is that kids are very intuitive. No matter how young you are as a child, you can sense things, you can observe things. So the transition for me, it didn't exactly catch me off guard, because at a very young age, you're able to observe certain things, your parents' behavior, their relationship, how they interact. You can tell when your father is away longer than he is around. The body language, you can already tell, you can see. So it's very important to note that kids see these things, and it's very important also how you handle your situation with your partner in the home. So that transition didn't catch me off guard, right? So as things happened, it was no surprise. But I think the effects then, when you're a child, first of all, you don't entertain them, right? You don't stay too much on them because you're a child. You have your own life to live. You have activities of your own that keep you busy. But even if it's not activities of your own that keep you busy, your parents as well keep you busy. You have school. You have activities of your own. But I think it's subliminal at the back of your mind. It's there. It's subconscious. You don't stay on it, but it's there. You only realize when you get older, right? The symptoms, the effects that it has on you. And it takes such a long time to actually admit that there have been effects, but they're there. So the transition happened. Change of school, maybe, I think, assumably in an attempt, your parents doing that in an attempt maybe to not have you be a part of this change, or to not have it affect you in a detrimental way. So at a very young age, I think at 6.5, I already went to boarding school. across the border in South Africa. So what parent wants to take their child to boarding school at such a young age? My sister was 11. What 11-year-old wants to take care of a 6-year-old in a foreign land? You understand? We had caretakers. It was a good school, but what parent wants that for their child? So the transition, as it was happening, you can tell that the activities that are taking place, the decisions that are being made on your behalf are for your own good. But the approach is also very important. Do you communicate with your child? Do you explain? Even if it's a 5-year-old, do you bend down to their level? Do you bend down to their level and look them in the eye and say, okay, so this is what's happening and this is why it's happening? For a 6-year-old and 11-year-old, the conversation is going to be different, right? Much, much different, because one is more conscious of what's happening than the other. But the approach, do you communicate? At a very young level of your child, do you say, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about the fact that I'm not around as much as I used to be? How do you feel about the fact that how sometimes you have to make a plea with your own father to say these are questions that never came about, to say, how do you feel? How can we make it better for you? So you take in the transition and you, as a child, make it work for yourself. You start making processes of your own. Are these processes the correct way of dealing with this? So I then became a very secluded child, stayed in my own corner. One would say I'm shy, I'm reserved. But then honestly, I have these characteristics about myself. And I always say that I have an alter ego. And I don't know if it's an alter ego, Kapo. There are certain parts of who I am that I never tap into because of the effects of what was happening around me.
You've touched on so many things in one go.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one of the things I observed about you as I started knowing you was you're quite smart. You're quite outspoken, but you're very reserved. But I can't really term you someone that's shy per se. You're someone that needs to get out of your shell, because for me it was like you have so many talents, but you have this seclusion about yourself. So I think you have touched on that as well, because you said at first you did not realize this affected you, but as you grew older, you knew that this has affected me and somehow you have to deal with it. But I want us to talk about the schools part. You did mention when we started that your life was very comfortable with both parents. And one of the saddest things that happens with comfortability is that sometimes when parents divorce, that level of comfort is taken away from you as a child. So you had to change schools. I know you went to one of those best schools in South Africa as you were a child, but you had to change. And obviously you went to St. Kitts. It's not a bad school per se, but it's it's downgrading, for lack of a better word. I mean, I'm being honest.
Definitely. I was relegated.
You're relegated. So you are from there and then you're downgrading. This must have affected you somehow. Let's talk about the schools and in your relationships, how the divorce affected you.
Okay. So the transition, I then moved to school. You have to adapt, right? When you're young, it's so easy to adapt. You learn new languages, you make new friends. It's an amazing experience. You become this versatile person who's exposed to so much. So that's the advantage, right? So because every cloud has a silver lining, the transition was both painful but beautiful in the same breath, right? So I went to Christian Divet. This is in the Free State for about 4 years. I was in primary school. When you're young, the thing about it is also consistency is very important for your children, because I'd say brilliant. I would get the awards at school. Is it math? Is it English? Is it whatever?
You're still brilliant.
I'm going to explain how the transition then affected why I don't even term myself that anymore. There's a certain level of discomfort in acknowledging your power, and you could be an amazing person, but you don't even want to admit it to yourself anymore, right? So then 4 years later, I was then shipped off to a private school, even St. Conrad's College in the Northwest Province, one of the best schools in South Africa. 2 years. And then grade 7, you already envision yourself or grade 12, I'm going to go into varsities. You already envision this big life for yourself where it doesn't only end here. And because you know your potential, right? So it's an advantage maybe on your part that, oh, my parents divorced and now there's all this compensation for the divorce, right? But then things happen along the way, and then one of the parents meets a partner. That's going to have an effect on you as a child. There's going to be backtracking of a couple of things. It's not always the case, but that's what happened in my case. So I find myself coming back home to Lesotho, Mohaladitwe. It's a shock to my system. You find yourself in a situation where you're walking about how and it's like, what's happening? I used to be that kid, and I saw schooling in the morning, and I flew 20 rand, about 50 rand per day. 1 p.m. There was so much convenience. It was the typical private school type of life, you know. And then there's this relegation that just also catches you off guard. It doesn't only catch you off guard, it catches your mother off guard as well, because she's here in a situation where she's trying to find her feet. Because I want to tell you before I even go far that when they separated, Linda, she left everything. Okay. She was like, for the sake of my children, I'm going to leave you with this house. I'm going to leave you with the cars, the businesses, everything. For the sake, yabana, the custody, whatever. So imagine I'm going back to a mother who's still trying to find her own feet, right? We're going to have to fight this battle together. You're 12, you're 13. You have to be each other's comfort. It's like, what's going on? And sometimes you make it about you as a child. It's like, what is it about me? Was I not loved enough? Was I not appreciated enough? Why did it have to be me? Because also there was that separation between myself and my sister, where she remained. I was brought home, and you're like, what is it about me? You almost feel like the black sheep. It's a fusion of very many things. But because I grew up with my father most of the time, you still remain with this unconditional love at the end of the day, despite the flaws, despite whatever happened, right? You don't resent them, but there are so many questions. You yearn for this person, and this also then feeds into your relationships with men, right? You have been let down by this person, but the love remains, the questions remain. But then you also are afraid to be confrontational. You don't ask the questions. You're afraid to be headstrong about it. You know, you're afraid to put your foot down and say, no, I need answers. What's going on? I need clarity. Which also then goes back to that whole communication thing. As things happen, are you communicating with your children? Because I then made it about me. This is where then the brilliance, you ask yourself about yourself. Am I good enough? And then you then cripple into a corner, right? So it was a very humbling experience, for lack of a better term. Humbling in the literal sense. Primary, but no, you have to go back to standard 6, grade 6, wherever you were. You then go to a high school, they say, we cannot accept you because LGC, something. So there's this no acceptance because it was a whole lot of things. And then St. Catherine's, I will always appreciate Mema Chabala. I was there. We had a conversation with my mother. It was a very personal conversation where Dukolo said it was an impossible situation to get around for my mother, financially, emotionally, mentally, all of that. But then I got my acceptance. School, I was different, obviously, from Banababa. Some received it well, some not so well. Somehow, it's so very mean. Where they admire you. So it's always two sides of the same coin. You're appreciated, and then you're not appreciated. Someone you are wanted. Like
she is not. What is happening?
You know. And so then there was that transition. So for 5 years, I was staying with my mother. She had to make ends meet. I remember even before me staying with her at the age of 13, her moving to Masego because and having to find her own feet. she would hire a place out to rent. We've moved quite a lot, and until she settled, and I really want to say I appreciate her for that. She never gave up. She never said die, no matter what was being thrown her way. And when you're a kid and you have to figure out life, and you can see that she herself is also vulnerable, you have to mature very young. So all the transitions this stage, you had to grow up, you had to endure a lot, So I then grew up in this situation where you always have to adapt. My life has always been about adapting to one thing or another, from comfort to discomfort, back to comfort to, so it's always been, having to adapt to situations. Yeah.
I hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, now that you're older and parents do the best
they can,
given situation, and they always do what they know. And if we know better, we do better. That's why I have this show, for people to know stuff and do better. You are now a mother. Some of the lessons that you learned throughout your childhood and through your parents' divorce, like what would you say for future? Obviously, you're still young, you have a whole life ahead of you. It could be lessons for children going through a similar path that you went through, or for parents, because it's not their doing. What would you say?
I would say, if my response is in the form of a question, what are you doing for your children? What are you doing? No, to ensure, I'm not even saying you are going to divorce, but change can happen in the form of a death, even, of a parent. And I know, we all know about life plans, insurances, education plans for your children. And so what are you doing to try and make for a situation should change come? Can I at least assure myself that I've done all I can to secure their future? Right? What are you doing? Are you communicating? Are you making plans for your children? You could be divorced tomorrow, you could die tomorrow, you could be... So as both parents, are you depending on one another for livelihood? Because if I'm depending on you as my husband for livelihood, can you see what it does? Somebody dies, we get divorced, what are we doing? What are you doing?
Chills. Yeah. I'm getting chills.
I'm not even saying Cheleta is going to ensure that Libusio Mbahawana is going to be okay, but the bit that you can do, if it's financial, if it's overcompensation, then so be it.
If it's emotional as well. You talk a lot about communication.
Yeah, communication. Whereas as ethnicity, Black Africans in particular, there's something really awkward about communication.
You don't talk.
And being open, right? There's something really awkward about that. We don't talk.
You'll be shocked that someone, when you're talking about this, they're quite uncomfortable. They're thinking, how could she share? How could Binky actually agree to this?
Yeah.
Because we are so uncomfortable about talking about uncomfortable situations. Yeah. But they happen in its real life.
Yeah. And me being here talking about this, but I'm not going to receive it very well. It's going to be why are you revealing such person? Things always have to be on the hush as people. I don't understand why. And I'm only realizing this 3 decades into my life. Let's not be apologetic. Let's talk, let's communicate, right? I don't understand it. So what are you doing for your children emotionally, mentally, financially, all of it? It's an all-round. It's an all-round.
So what are you doing about your anxiety for the future? I must imagine you had anxiety for your future, your child's future. What are you doing about it? Are you working through counseling? What are you doing?
It's always a thing of, in my case in particular, when things go well, it's like, this is too good to be true. It's like, Hosani, something will change. And that's what life is. It comes with both the good and the bad, right? There's all sorts of possibilities. But then it doesn't help if you're going to live your life. What if things change, Hosani? I have this job. I'm trying to secure a future for myself, for my child, for my future children. Yeah, but I don't know. Hey, you don't want to do too much for your child just in case you're dead tomorrow. You don't want to. So, you don't want to live a life out of fear. For me, it's been that anxiety. Something goes well. Life is good today. But then I feel like, too good to be true. Almost as though you're undeserving of nice things, right? But we're all deserving of nice things. We're all deserving.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then there's that part that we are forgetting that you need to talk about in less than 2 minutes. Your relationship with men. How did that affect you? Okay. If it did in any way?
I think it did. I think it did in the sense that it could be awesome, it could be great. I've had a very wonderful relationship before, very long-term, beautiful, right? But you seek validation.
Okay.
It's you don't want to seek validation from a person of the opposite sex. You're partners for a reason. It's a give and take situation. You don't want to be a reacher and one person the settler, right? Because wanting to keep, wanting to hold for yourself so much that it compromises yourself. You compromise yourself, you understand? And you forget who you can be your own person with or without. You always want to impress you.
You are holding on so tight that you don't want to lose this person because you've seen lost in your life.
It doesn't matter what they do. You're forgiving. Because I remember with my dad, was a sneaker guy, but in the name of wanting to keep and impress and wanting to be found worthy of love from a male figure. So it feeds into your relationship with men, right? You become forgiving, and then you have this realization that no, but this comes from way back. And I never wanted to admit for myself, well, that's what it did. But that is what it does. You are compromised, you continue compromising yourself, seeking validation, seeking love, seeking, I guess I get in very many relationships with men, but the one or two that I've had, I realize this. So it's also very important, particularly for girl children. You don't want to seek validation from Luckily, I haven't dated older men in the name of getting affection, but you want to feel that validation and that love, and you always want to be reassured of somebody's presence, but reassure yourself of yourself first.
Yes, yes, and now you know this to reassure yourself because
of your own self. Definitely.
I'm so glad you did say you went through counseling, so I know it did help.
It did. It really did. Thank you so much, Pigs. Thank you.